Hey guys, welcome in our studio in Emeloid. Today we're going to talk about one of the setups that you probably struggle with a lot, or maybe you just set up easily, the white background. Now, over time things have changed. Dynamic range in cameras has grown immensely, and that means that normally in photography you have more dynamic range or more headroom, meaning you don't blow out your highlights as easily and you don't block up your shadows as easily, so you have just more room to work with. Now, in most cases this is a big advantage, but in the case of the white backdrop it's a little bit more complicated. The white backdrop is very interesting to shoot, but it's also very boring, but sometimes you just need to shoot it right. So how do you set it up? When I started out with the white backdrop, I always used two reflectors on the side to, well, brighten up the backdrop. I used two strip lights on my model to literally give it an accent light, and of course a large main light. Now, the first problem everybody experiences is that freaking floor. How do you get the floor pure white, no shadows on the floor from your accent lights, and it just looks nice without the model just floating around? Well, as you can see in our set, we are using plexiglass on the floor. Now, we're using transparent plexiglass, and this is one main big advantage. If you're using different colors, for example, a white backdrop, a gray backdrop, or maybe black, blue, or brown, it doesn't matter, with transparent plexiglass, you will see the color of the backdrop. And this is one of the reasons why we use the transparent plexiglass. Now, what does plexiglass do? It's a little bit difficult to explain, but in essence it just focuses the light back up, meaning if it just hits a little bit of light, you will get a beautiful white backdrop. The other main advantage is that it gives you a very nice shadow. It looks like your model is connected with your backdrop. And this is one of the things that I hate about those white backdrops. You just see a model floating in air, and I just want a little bit of shadow underneath. Now, you could of course say, let's do that in Photoshop, but hey, that takes more time, so let's just do it right on the set. But now lighting wise, I already told you in the past we used 4 strobes and 1 main light. So I was thinking, why not do it differently? Now, of course, you have these special background reflectors. They are not that expensive and they promise you to have a perfect white backdrop. Well, we tested a lot of them and they don't deliver what we're going to show you now. So, what do we use for our backdrop? Well, as you can see in this setup, we're using 2 rogue umbrellas on the backdrop. Now, for the backdrop, I'm using the white shoot-through and reflective umbrellas. Now, as our main light setup, I'm using the black umbrella with the white sleeve. Now, the white umbrella is awesome, but the black umbrella is really nice for those portraits. It gives you a little bit of a softer light quality, and it just looks absolutely amazing. And when you take the sleeve off, you get a really nice harsh quality in your shadows. But hey, the setup. So, you might wonder like, okay, so why the umbrella? One of the biggest advantages of umbrellas, and also the disadvantage, is that the light spreads everywhere. So that means that your white backdrop is actually more easily lit by an umbrella than by those background reflectors, because the umbrella just gives you way more light. You would almost call it omnidirectional, because the umbrella we're using is a so-called shoot-through umbrella. But the shoot-through umbrella also reflects the light back. And that's why we're using those umbrellas also for a second function in our set, and that's the accent lights. Now, it doesn't really matter what you want. Do you want accent lights or not? You can still use the same setup. By angling the umbrellas, you can literally just steer the amount of light that hits your model or doesn't hit your model. So if you just want the backdrop to be bright and no accent lights on your model, you just aim the umbrellas like this. And maybe use some black reflectors on the side of your model so no stray light will hit your model. Now, if you do want the accent on your model, you just aim the umbrellas a little bit more towards your model. The backdrop and the floor will still be lit the same, but you will get a nice accent light on your model. The front light, very easy, just a large umbrella with that sleeve, and that just fills up everything. And as you can see in the images, I also included one of the images straight out of the camera with just a little bit of boost in the highlights. As you can see here, we don't need any Photoshop at all. Everything is pure white, the model just jumps out, and there are no shadows on the backdrop from your accent lights. And look at that plexiglass, that's really nice reflection. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you don't have to do anything in Photoshop. The only thing you have to do in Photoshop is take out the seams of the plexiglass. We're using 2 sheets. If you want to use 1 sheet, you don't even have to take those out. But hey, that's very easy. Just use the healing brush or the content aware fill tool, whatever you want to do. But those seams are gone in a few seconds. Now you might wonder, hey, this looks really interesting, but why did you tell that little thing about dynamic range? Now, in the past, we metered our backdrop with a so-called reflective meter reading. And a reflective meter reading means that you get a value for 18% gray. Now this is really nice to calculate with, because if you have 18% gray and you open up 2.5 steps, you will get pure white in the old days. So that means that, for example, if you meter your model on f11, you have to make sure that when you meter your backdrop in a reflective metering, that you have to be 2.5 stops higher than f11, and that will give you a pure white backdrop. But nowadays, cameras have more dynamic range. And that means that nowadays we need 3 or even 3.5 stops of more light on that backdrop. And that also means that that backdrop will start to reflect that light back on our model. And of course we don't want that, because now we get lens flares, we get stray lights, and you get accent lights on your model where you don't want it. So that's why with modern time white backdrops, we always place the model much more in front. So 10 years ago, I would place the model maybe 2 meters away from the backdrop. Nowadays, we move them about 3.5 meters away from the backdrop. If you still have problems with lens flares, make sure that you use those black reflectors, because those will take away those lens flares. Now, we did it with 2 umbrellas on the back and 1 main light. Is it also possible to do it with only 1 umbrella on the back? Because let's be honest, if we sell our travel kit from Rogue, we have 1 black umbrella with sleeve and 1 white umbrella. So let's try it out with only 1 umbrella. Now, as you can see here, I did move the umbrella a little bit more to the side and aimed it a little bit more at our backdrop. But also here, look at the image straight out of the camera. It's pure white, and this is the final result. Now, of course, you only have accent lights on one side of the model, but hey, if you're in a pinch, you can do it with 2 lights. Did you expect a full white backdrop with only 2 lights? I don't think so, right? Thank you so very much for watching, guys. If you like what we do with these small tips, just send us an email or just comment on social media or YouTube with your questions, and maybe your question will be answered in the next short tip video in our digital classroom series. See you again next time. Bye, guys.